Welcome back to another week, another episode on the Rochelle Christian podcast. This week, I'm talking to Vanessa Naja, who is a human design business coach and certified BG5 consultant who helps heart centered entrepreneurs build aligned, sustainable businesses that feel good and make an impact. Vanessa combines human design, emotional intelligence, and practical systems to help entrepreneurs grow with clarity, confidence, and ease. She also partners with bodygraph.com and is the host of the Pulse on Human Design podcast and a community educator focused on human design in business and leadership. She also hosts her own show, Human Design for Entrepreneurs, and co-hosts BG5 Live with the BG5 Business Institute, bringing human design and business insight to multiple audiences. So Vanessa is so knowledgeable, and we talk a lot about entrepreneurship, what it looks like, how we can lean into our human design, but we also talk a lot about emotions. And Vanessa is very familiar with astrology as well and weaves that in her own practice. And I think that the emotional intelligence piece, I mean, it's hugely important for so many reasons. And if you've been following the show for a while, you know that this used to be the Emotional Mastery podcast. And then I made a rebrand last year, I believe, around this time, actually. And emotional intelligence has been a huge path in my life, has been a huge lesson in my life, and continues to be. And it's just such a big part of personal evolution and growth and like all the things. So I really love that that is a theme of this podcast as well. And we talk not just about the emotionally defined, but we also talk about emotionally undefined, what that means, what that looks like. We give examples. So it's a really, really incredible conversation. And one thing that we touch on, so I just wrote a post on Substack around the Aquarius season and like the age of Aquarius. So if you don't subscribe to so if you don't subscribe to the Substack, head over and subscribe to that. If you have a paid subscription, you're also getting moon circles, weekly transit updates, and monthly overviews. I'm going to be doing a little bit more in depth. I did a whole Aquarius season video in there as well. So the link is down below if you want to join. And Astro Design School, if you want to join the waitlist for the next round, which will start in Aries season, you can also click down below and sign up for that. But with all that being said, so Aquarius season, which we're in, is really amplified this year because Pluto's in Aquarius, and this is the age of Aquarius. Again, depending on the train of thought that you hold, there are some like true sidereal astrology. Pluto is actually not in Aquarius yet. And so, but the nodes are. And I just like went down this little mini rabbit hole. And I know the whole conversation around Western astrology or tropical astrology and sidereal astrology always comes up. I had somebody not long ago send me a link or a news article where it was like your sun sign is wrong and all this stuff, and it was like clearly just trying to validify, is that the word I'm looking for, astrology. But this is like a conversation that's been happening forever. And the way that I see it and the way that I use it is that tropical Western astrology is like the material, the 3D. It's like what we're here to learn like right now. Whereas sidereal or true sidereal astrology, Vedic astrology is more like the path of the soul, because when I look at them both, I resonate with both of them. And in true, although I am one of the ones that my sun sign is a Taurus regardless. So I'm kind of lucky in that way. Lucky. I'm just like, I so strongly resonate with being a Taurus. But I could see how if I pulled another like true sidereal, that I might be really attached to Taurus. And then if it said I was like Aries, I don't know. But anyway, this is a whole tangent that's irrelevant to the conversation. But the age of Aquarius, the season of Aquarius, all this to say that it really layers on beautifully with this conversation that we have today, because Vanessa really talks about what business looks like moving forward in this age of Aquarius, right? Where we're no longer doing this like top down hierarchical, structure within businesses, right? We're sort of moving to this more individual focused, in the sense that we are allowing ourselves to be in our zone of genius, be supported by others. We're doing things a little bit differently, and it looks a little bit differently, and it's really, really beautiful. And if you've been following on social media, I recently it's an interesting story, but I rejoined a network marketing company that I joined 8 years ago, and I'm in such a different place in my life right now. And it's literally, I attribute fitness and this network marketing company to my personal growth journey, because I don't know that I would have had the exposure at the time that I did, to personal development, to personal growth, all those things, had I not joined that network marketing and really started moving my body. So anyway, so it's just like kind of kismet that it's like come back around. But what I find so beautiful this time around, so the first time I joined this company, it was just like hustle, like grind, like it was just like so like cold call, get your family and signed up. And I was so uncomfortable. First of all, again, I was a different person back then, but I was like, I don't I don't want to do this. I don't like this. It doesn't feel resonant in my system. Like it's not for me. And so that was primarily the reason why I left it then. Not because the products were shit. Like I used them for years after I had stopped like selling them. I'm air quoting it. But like, since then I have joined I joined Healy like 2 or 3 years ago because I really believed in the product. And I'm always of the mind of like, if I'm really use it, like, and I'm going to talk about it, might as well make a little bit of money off of it. Right. And so I joined the community behind Healy, and I loved that because it was really astrology based. It was really supportive. Like it was just like a beautiful community. And then again, this came back around and I was like, wow, I'm in such a different place in my life. Like I know the products work. I know that now it's like 8 years later, the company is still going strong. I know the potential. And having been exposed a little bit more to network marketing, like I do think that the structure of network marketing, when done correctly and when done right, is sort of this new age, like this passive way of supporting ourselves, of resourcing all of, others together and individually. And what's so beautiful about the team that I'm on currently is it's so resonant with the age of Aquarius. It's so beautifully put together at the back end, and things that are coming down the pipeline at the end of this month. Like I am so excited for, because it is literally the Aquarian age. Like things are set up in a way that we are resourcing each other, that we are supporting each other, that we are working together. And also we get to show up in our zone of genius. I don't have to show up and try and be type A and organize and like all the things like that. I can show up in my zone of genius, be creative, make content the way that I love to make content, show up in the way that I show up, like do things the way that I love, and be so supported within that structure. So I'm so pumped. I'm so excited that I said yes to this. And it's also teaching me just a lot. I think 2025. So we're still in the year of the snake, technically. That switches February 17th, which is also the first eclipse of the year, which is wild. We're already in the eclipse season. So if you're feeling it, yeah, we're in the eclipse season, and this one's going to be pretty intense. But I totally we're in the year of the snake. Oh yeah. So last year there was like just like a lot of shedding, a lot that I've had to move through. If you listen to the podcast episode, I think it was the one before January. So it must have been the last one of December. It was like a 2025 in review, just like everything that's left, everything that was like forced to leave, everything I've now like more so come into, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, like closeness with myself, acceptance of myself, awareness of myself. Like I just see myself in a different way. And I just kind of care less about the things that I used to care about. And I was getting lost down the rabbit hole of what they call it, doom scrolling. I was doom scrolling on TikTok, and I came across some other people in this network marketing company, and all of the hate comments like had me like rattled in my body. I was feeling like, oh my gosh. And I had to remember that whatever you're doing online, whether it's a personal brand, whether it's for a company, whether you're an affiliate, like Amazon affiliate marketing, like we're all selling something, right? And so it's just reminding, and we're always going to have air quote, quote unquote haters. Like there's always gonna be somebody who doesn't like you. And it's like the more people that don't like you, the more people that do like you. Like the person that I was watching had like hundreds of thousands of followers. The video had like 2 million views. But of course, like all you saw was like the negative ones. But I was like, I don't know. It's so interesting that I feel like the place that I've come in my mind is like this place of not quite detachment, but like viewing things in a way, I don't know, it's all fake. at the end of the day, right? It's all fake. It's all perceived. It's all in our minds. Like I've been telling my kids that, I'm like, all truths are but half truths. And they're like, what does that even mean? So I was explaining, I'm like, what I see to be true might be true for me, but it might not be true for you. And that's okay. Both truths can exist at the same time. And there was something that was said recently in my son's school, and I'm debating if I'm going to approach the teacher about it. But it was something that I'm not really going to get into because, yeah, anyway, but it was something that felt to me as though it was a teacher imposing a specific viewpoint, religious viewpoint on my child. And but that I have to remember, like, all truths are but half truths. I don't actually know the conversation that I'm just getting this relayed from my 9-year-old, right? And he might have taken it differently. And so it's just like, it's sort of like telephone, right? Where like somebody says something and but obviously if another comment like this comes up, like I will definitely say something, but it's just interesting the shift of perspective of like, and I think we talk about this in this specific conversation, that, you know, we're sort of one foot in the old world, old way of doing things, and one foot in this new way of doing things. And so it's this battle. And I notice it within myself in my own mind of like, you know, the way I started this week's Substack article post on the age of Aquarius was, oh my gosh, I totally lost my, okay, authenticity. Wow. I don't know why I'm so scattered. I don't know what is going. I mean, I do know what's going on with the astrology this week, but I'm like, I don't know if there's anything specifically today, but I feel a little bit scattered. So hopefully this introduction makes sense. Authenticity. The Spain scale of emotions has shown that authenticity is actually the most magnetic, or the highest vibration emotion that we have, or sensation, feeling, right, that we have. It's like 400 times more magnetic or more powerful than love itself, which I think love and authenticity are really tied together, because when you're authentic, I believe you're truly coming from a place of love, and you love yourself enough to show up in that space, because it's not always easy to be authentic. And so it really takes like certain energy, but authenticity is like required, right? Authenticity is so magnetic. And so, yeah, just like that really high frequency. And I don't even know where I was going with this. I apologize, guys. I'm like scattered. So maybe we're just going to get into the episode because it is so, so good. Vanessa, again, we talk all about, I'm really trying to remember where I was going with that, because we were talking about being in the old world and the new world, bridging these two when it comes to business and being authentic. Yeah, maybe that was just being authentic to yourself in this age of Aquarius, right? Because it's like, if you don't have that, like, take the time to really come inside and get to know yourself, right? And this is where emotional intelligence comes in, because a lot of times we don't come inside and take that time because it's uncomfortable. But it's like, truly, it takes, they say 90 seconds for an emotion to like actually move through you when you actually come inside and sit with it. And the last couple of mornings, I've been waking up and just feeling this like sensation in my chest, whether it's frustration, irritation, something like that. And I'm just trying to like sit with it and just acknowledge it, right? And like also bear witness to the fact that like I don't have to believe everything that I think. Like my thoughts are not true, right? It's like that bad roommate that's in your mind. It's just like, talking and trying to convince you of things. And something that Vanessa said too when we were talking specifically about emotional authority was that she noticed that when her mind tries to convince her of something, she knows that she is detached from her emotional authority. And so we'll just get into the episode because it's really, really good. We talk about the 2027 shift. We talk about, what it looks like being an entrepreneur, or like in business. We talk about emotional authority. We talk about astrology. We talk about so much. So it's such a good episode. I thank you so much for listening and for listening to me ramble in this introduction for like the last 10 minutes. But follow me at Rochelle.Christiane, ROCHELLE.CHRISTIANE. That is on TikTok, on Instagram, Stan Store /Rochelle.Christiane, YouTube, Rochelle.Christiane. Like, it's all Rochelle.Christiane. And then Vanessa is HD Vanessa Naja. That's VANESSANAJA. You can find all the links that you need down in the show notes. I thank you so much for listening, and I will catch you on the other side. Welcome to the podcast. Today I have Vanessa Naja. We were just going on, before we started recording all about human design and, the solar plexus, which we're going to get into here. And I'm so excited. Vanessa is a business coach, certified BG5 consultant who helps heart-centered entrepreneurs build aligned, sustainable businesses, and a podcast host for the Pulse on Human Design podcast with bodygraph.com, which I love. And that's how we were connected. I would love to just start sort of setting the foundation of your background and kind of how you even came into like the human design world and a little bit more about what you do. And then we're going to get into 2027 because I think it's a conversation I've really been wanting to bring to the podcast, but my knowledge of it is it's fairly limited. I've done reading and research, but I don't have like the broad, I just didn't feel like I had enough for myself to bring to the podcast. So I'm so excited to see how that wraps into things and, specifically for entrepreneurs and, everything as we're entering this new age.
Yay, I'm super excited to talk about it, and thank you so much for having me on. So, my background with human design, I was raised, I don't like to say religious. I went to Catholic schools. Both sides of my family were Catholic, but not very religious. Um, we had to go to church because if you go to Catholic school, it's you should be seen in church. However, my mom's side of the family, my great aunt, both of them were very what you might call it woo-woo. And one of my great aunts was a professional astrologer. So I've had my birth chart like literally hand drawn from as soon as I came out of the womb. And I was very familiar with these types of things. And I got really interested in more occult type studies, really in my 20s. And I dove into all of the different things. I researched all kinds of things. I'm a 5/1, so that one line loves to research. And in about 5 years ago, in this very synchronistic way, human design came to me. And an acquaintance of mine, it wasn't somebody I knew very well, had asked me for like a last minute ride to the airport. And I just happened to be available for it. And we're driving, and she asked me if I'd heard of human design. I was like, no, tell me more about it. And she starts to tell me about it. And I was like, how have I never heard of this before? Like, these are all things that I love. I love astrology. I love the I Ching. I've studied the I Ching. I love the chakra system. Like, all of these things in human design are things that I'm like super fascinated by. How have I not ever heard of this? So I got like a big fat sacral yes. I'm a manifesting generator. And the second I got home from that airport drive, I immediately started to research. Within a week, I was in like a year-long certification program because, skipping steps is manifesting
Mm-hmm.
generator. I'm like, I'm just diving in. I'm not gonna, I'll read some stuff, I'll dive in. And then after that program, I just I kept studying with different teachers, always immersed in something. Like I feel like I've not come up for air since I dove in, and I might never. So at some point, I was like, okay, I really want like a deeper foundation. I mean, I've studied source materials on my own. I've done a lot of self-study. My first certification was, pop human design, qualifies as pop human design. And when I was doing my research, and I don't even remember exactly how, but that's when I came across BG5. And I do have a business background. My university degree is in business. I worked in that field until my Saturn return and was like, I can't do corporate. Like, I can't live my life like this. But I do have a strong background in it. And I've been an entrepreneur for, yeah, 20 years now since my Saturn return. And I'm in my Chiron return now, right smack in the middle of it. And so I just kind of got pulled into working with entrepreneurs and businesses. And I do have a lot of business circuitry in my design. I have two strengths or channels that are large business channels and one that is a small business, small group channel. I've always been recognized for those strengths in businesses. And, looking back after having studied BG5, I'm like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. Like, this is definitely how this has shown up for me. And so it was just basically one thing that led to another. And here we are.
Hmm. I love that. Yeah, it's for me, I think it was about 6, 7 years ago, right? And it's kind of the same thing. Somebody was like, "Have you heard of human design?" And I was like, no. Like, what is this?" And then I like looked into it and I was like, "This is so much." There was like no way I had like the bandwidth at the time. And then we got on like another call and they're like, "Did you look into it?" And I was like, "I mean, I saw it was a manifesting generator. Yeah, sure, it resonated, but like whatever." And then, yeah, the second time I dove in, I was like, this is it. This is everything. And same thing. Since then, it's like I actually took a full year off though, because I felt like so like the labels of it were beginning to define me. And I was like, I have to find, especially for my emotional wave and just like my relationship with my emotions, I was like, I have to find my center outside of all the terminology and outside of all of the, like everything. So I did like separate myself for a little while, but yeah, it's been like it opened the door for astrology for me. Like when I was younger, I was always like reading like in Cosmo magazine and stuff like that. But like I didn't when I found out there was more than just like your sun sign, I was mind blown. I was like, oh my gosh. And like literally everything in my life like made sense. I
When
think
you
that's what
realized
like,
you're a double Leo.
oh my gosh. Yes. And Moon square Pluto. That's the one that really like
Yeah,
for
okay.
me, and we were talking offline about the 1222 channel. And I wonder for me if that's partly why it's so intense, is because also, my emotions and then my moon is also square to Pluto. So it just intensifies this like, oh,
Yeah, I
yeah.
do. I definitely find like I like combining the two. So I have Saturn conjunct Sun, and Saturn is my ruling
Mm,
planet. So, learning more about that as well. And I'm like, I am a little bit of a late bloomer, even though I'm not a sixth line in my profile, and there is
yeah.
all these, yeah, and it's just interesting to combine the two. And I love that you said that you took some time off too, because I do find that people, like the thing with human design and BG5, it's a tool and
Mhm.
it's meant to help us. It's not a box that we're meant to be in. And I also have experienced that where, you define yourself by these things that you learn about your human design. And then all of a sudden, it's like now you're being conditioned by it, which just totally
Yes.
defeats the point.
Hmm.
So I do recognize that also sometimes in other people when they're letting themselves be a little bit boxed in by it. And I like to remind people that your body graph, like your design, is the map. It's not the territory.
Yeah.
And it's very different when you're looking at a map. And then when you actually go and visit the place and you're in it, it's a whole different experience. So,
Hmm.
it's not meant to box you in, like use it as a way to help springboard you. But if you're noticing that it's like closing in on you and it's really limiting you, then that's talk to a different human design teacher, take a
Yeah.
break,
Yeah.
whatever it is. And really it comes back to following your own inner authority. And sometimes that will, tell you like, yeah, this is not the right description or something that resonates with me.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been on this like deep exploration of just like authenticity and what that even means, right? Because there's just so much out there that I feel like, and so much conditioning that I think sometimes it's really hard for us to even understand what that means for us. But it's like in that exploration, it's almost, kind of like you said, human design is like the map, right? It was for me in my experience and what, I think with a lot of people, it's kind of like the door, right? Or the key, sorry, that opens the door. But then it's like, but you're the piece. Like I still have to find the authenticity within me. Like human design gave me permission to be like, oh, like finding out it was the 6-3, I was like, that makes sense. And the amount of shame I've held in my life for starting things, quitting things, not following through, and just being so like, whatever, or just like my chaotic experiences in my 20s, like, oh my gosh, I tried like everything. I mean, like, so having that permission, but then knowing that, yeah, like, I like that piece is within me and I have to find that. Like, there's nothing that you're going to give me that's going to do it for me. You still have to like, kind of come
Yeah.
inside and do that.
Yeah, and I do see people a lot coming, like they want you to give them their answers based on their
Mm-hmm.
human design. And the thing is, it's not, there are like possibilities here and there are strengths here, and there are some places where you might be challenged. And those are places that actually really truly help you grow. But nobody can tell you by looking at any of your maps, whether it's human design or astrology or Enneagram or whatever it is, nobody can tell you, like, this is what you're meant to do and this is how you have to do it. And
Mm-hmm.
it is an experiment and it does give us that permission. I also find it's very healing. And, we talked about this before, us both being emotionally defined and the things that we learned about our emotional experience and our emotional solar plexus and how it operates. It's like so healing and freeing. Um, so it can be a very healing tool, but it can't tell you exactly what you have to do or what you're meant to do and how you're meant to do it. That is something that you get to explore on your own. And you can use human design as a compass to help guide you.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear the trash is coming past right now. So
No,
it's
it's so
so
funny.
loud.
It's funny because with Zoom too, I'm like, I can totally hear my air conditioning, but I hope you cannot
Yeah,
because of the
no,
noise filter and also my mic settings. But I'm like,
yeah, I know
can you
Zoom
hear
is
me?
pretty good about it, but my dog's barking in the trash, and I'm like, oh my gosh, of course.
No, I can't hear any of it.
Okay, good. Yeah. No, but I love that you work with emotional intelligence because that's been such a lesson of my life. And it's interesting. I'm in like a little mini business mastermind, and we were talking about it's primarily astrology focused, but we weave human design in there as well. But we were talking about what you can look for as entrepreneurs, like as far as your blueprint, your astrology and your human design and things like that. And something that came up because we're all women in there. And it was like, and I think even for men, but that emotional piece, like your moon and your emotional authority, if you are emotionally defined, but even still your moon in astrology, I feel like is a huge piece to being in business. And it's so fascinating because I've had conversations with like really successful men in business that are completely open in their solar plexus. And it's fascinating to me because I think it gives them this beautiful ability to stay neutral when people are freaking out. And that's what they always like kind of reflect, or they're not triggered by it. They're not like reactive by it, right? Versus like, sometimes if you have a really active solar plexus or like really just without the emotional intelligence piece or how to regulate or how to like be non-reactive, right? It can really be a challenge to like move through in those spaces.
Yeah, and I actually have several men in my life that are colleagues as well who also have a completely open solar plexus, and
Mm-hmm.
I very much see that same thing in them. And I think for those 55% of us that are emotionally defined and cannot make in the moment decisions,
Yeah.
that business will often ask of you, like understanding that about yourself and allowing yourself the time to really get emotionally clear on what the correct decision is for you. Because I know before, well, not only before human design, but also like when I first started learning human design and I thought I was following my emotional wave, I was kind of doing it. I wasn't
Mm.
actually feeling it. I made so many decisions that were like, in retrospect, you're like, yeah, that was totally your mind tricking you into thinking you're following your authority, but you were definitely not following your authority. It has cost me a lot of money,
Yeah.
especially as a first line that loves to
Oh
do
my
trainings and
gosh.
certifications. And
Yeah.
now it's like, now that I have like a good handle on it, I'm like, yeah, I really thought I wanted this. And it turns out when I gave myself enough time that it was like, nope, not actually for me.
Yeah, that's interesting. My 1222 is my Venus and Jupiter square. And so you talk about like I have an undefined root as well. So being so impulsive and just like spending money and like doing all the things, it's like moving through that emotional authority. Like now I put things in my Amazon cart or like on my Safari, I have so many open windows of just like programs I want to take or things I want to do. But I'm like, I have to actually honor. And I like what you said. And I would love to have like just what that looks like for you. You said like doing your emotional authority versus actually feeling it. So like what is the difference between that? Like what did that look like for you? And how did you realize that you were like doing it versus like actually moving through the experience?
Okay, so it's interesting because you brought up your astrology moon. So my moon
Mm-hmm.
is in Aquarius.
Okay.
So I love to overthink my emotions. And it also happens to, so it's in gate 41, and that is one of the gates that points towards one of my bridging gates, gate 30.
Mm,
And so gate 30 is like, you really want to do this, which it's, a bridging gate for people that might not know about it is if in human design you have split definition, it means there's two defined areas of your chart that are not connected. And the gates that connect them, those are actually your biggest areas of conditioning if you have split definition,
mm-hmm.
even bigger than your undefined centers. So for me, my bridging gates, 59, 55, and 30, that 30 is like, you really want this. Like, you need a new experience. Like, so I like partially that shadow would creep in, but also with the like thinking, like it's the mind, and I have a logically defined ashna coming in and reasoning with me while I'm, in my supposed period of waiting out my wave, giving me all kinds of logical reasons as to why I should or should not do something. And at some point, I'd be like, okay, it's been long enough. I've slept on it for like, 3 whole nights and I still want it. I'm just going to sign up for it.
Mm,
And now I'm like, no, the second I notice my mind is trying to talk me into or out of something or using any kind of logic, that is not my authority.
mm,
Like, no.
mm,
So now when I notice it, I'm like, okay, cool, I see it. Like, that's not my authority. And I just keep waiting. And at some point, and this, it's not like a set time period. It's not like, okay, you sleep on it for one night or, 3 nights if it's a big decision. At some point, and the bigger the decision, the longer it takes, I get to this place of like neutral clarity. Like I'm no longer super over the top excited about it as like a
mm,
manifesting generator with gate 16.
yeah.
I'm not terrified. I mean, it might be, if it's a stretch, obviously there might be a little like nervousness and like, ooh, this is going to be a stretch, but I'm not like, you know, totally terrified of it. And it's just this neutral sense of clarity of what the correct decision is for me and knowing that I can handle the consequences.
Mm,
And before it was just my head talking me into thinking I listened to my emotional authority.
yeah. I love that because that was definitely a struggle that I found as well for a long time because it's like the amount of time that you have to wait sometimes it's so easy for the mind to then convince you this or convince you that. But the times that I found, yeah, I guess that truth is in this completely neutral, non-attached. Like a lot of times I'll be in meditation and I'm just like, no. It's just like a calm, like there's no, oh my gosh, that's so disappointing, or oh my God, I can't wait. Yeah, there's just this like, huh, yeah, I guess that's it. And it's like, I mean, the mind can still attach that and then make it something else, right? But there is that point. Because yeah, I make things mental so fast. And I don't
Oh
know
yeah.
if it's like, the my emotions connect to my throat, which then also connects to my mind through the 2343, which is my conscious on earth. So it just gets mental like real fast. So like taking that pause of just like, yeah, like I guess not feeling. So then also, how does that look for you, like in a business setting or in a business scenario where you are, and it's not, that neutrality is not coming quickly? How do you like navigate or like communicate that you need more time for things if it takes like 2 weeks for something?
So for me, for one, I have learned that if there's any pressure on making the decision or the decision cannot wait until I'm clear, then it's a no.
Mm,
So that's one. Two, luckily enough, being in the field that I'm in, people
yeah.
are very interested in following their own inner authority. And so when you tell them, like, hey, I need to get clarity on this, they're okay with waiting. And I mean, I'll
Mm-hmm.
give an example because, we're talking about Body Graph, who is one of my clients, and we have some big things planned for next year. And I need to come up with a certain plan to present it. And I personally need to get really clear on what that plan is. And it is totally okay. Like they are so accommodating and so wonderful. I'm like, hey, listen, like I can't tell you exactly when I'm going to present that plan. It's crystallizing slowly but surely. And as soon as I have it, I will let you know. I mean, it'll definitely be before the end of the year, obviously. Like, you
Yeah.
in business, you do have to like work with deadlines.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like my clients are always super accommodating about the fact that you know, I'm not going to make in the moment decisions. And it's really funny because the person I work with mainly at Bodygraph, Git is the founder, he has the 34, 20, 57 all conscious. So he is like immediately like he knows in the moment like what is and isn't correct.
Yeah.
And then you've got me with an unconscious and split off solar plexus
Yeah.
making my decisions. So he's very good at accommodating my time to make decisions. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And my other clients are also, obviously it depends on what the situation is and how I'm working with people, but I know if I need to make an immediate decision, then it's probably a no.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it also, goes back to that authenticity piece, right? As long as you're being yourself and in showing up in that way, I mean, I guess people can get mad, but it's not on you, right? Like if
Yeah.
you're
Oh yeah. Yeah.
so yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you said your moon is in gate 41, which is really is interesting. First of all, I know Pluto's sitting on your moon right now then because that's
And
like
it's been on my Earth. My Earth is in
oh
60.
my
So I've been
gosh.
dealing with Pluto opposite Sun. Now it's Pluto conjunct Moon. I've been
Oh,
dealing with this for years. So
oh my gosh. Yeah, it's coming up to an opposition in my moon, so I'm like embracing for it. But the I know like that gate 41 and Pluto are tied into this 2027 shift, right? And so like as we're talking about like business and what that looks like and and even emotional intelligence, can you speak to like what that 2027 shift is and like how maybe it might change the landscape of like how we are showing up? I mean, I think that we're seeing it already with people
oh
and like the
yeah.
way they
I mean, we've
collaborate
been in
and
it. We've been
yeah.
in it for
Yeah.
years. But yeah, it's interesting. So actually it's when Pluto hits 41 line 5, which is exactly where my moon is.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that the shift is taking place.
You're meant for this work.
Yeah, well, also I have the 3420, which is part of the
Mm-hmm.
new era. I have the
Mm-hmm.
3740, which is part of the old era. I also have the 9 and the 16, part of the old era, and the 55 and the 59, which are part of the new era, are my bridging gate. So
Mm-hmm.
it's all very significant in my
Yeah.
design. So yes, this global shift that we're going through, we're moving from this era of logic, tribalism, like hierarchy, bargains, where, you do something for me, I'll do something for you. People went to work just to make money to pay the bills, not because work was something that was satisfying and meaningful and something that really fulfilled their purpose. And big institutions, hierarchy, you have a boss, your boss has a boss, your boss's boss has a boss, and so on and so forth. The whole point of all of it was to make as much money as possible. It doesn't matter who gets screwed over in the process as long as you make profit for the shareholders. And we are moving away from that into the era of the individual. And in the era of the individual, there is still a really big part of community and connecting with others, but in creative ways, in ways where we are creating new things together that are supportive and collaborative. And we all get to be our true, individuated, unique, authentic selves. And we get to do like live out our purpose really. And you're seeing this a lot. And I think COVID was such a big part of this when people are now moving more away from institutions. Because I think once people, were required to not go into work for a long time, or a lot of people lost their jobs, they realized, like, I'm not going back to this. Like, this is not for me. A lot of people started their own businesses, you know, or joined smaller organizations, all of that stuff. And we're seeing like a lot of the big institutions are crumbling. We've been seeing this for years now with like financial institutions going under. We're seeing this with major governments. We are really moving away from these massive conglomerates where everything is super hierarchical and really just driven by profit and greed into people moving into smaller units, really desiring to do work that is meaningful for them, that is really fulfilling their purpose, and no longer being willing to just be a cog in a wheel.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things too, that is really happening with this shift, which is actually really exciting, is that connecting with others in like our electromagnetic frequency, which is really what our aura is, like really connecting with the right people, collaborating with the right people is such a big part of it. And frequency in general, and the things that worked in the past, like, these bro marketing techniques where, you have this sales script and you're going to convince this person and you already have all kinds of answers for any of their objections, and your whole goal is to get them to buy, not because you want to help them or because you're really going to make a difference in your life with whatever in their life with whatever it is that you're selling, but just because you need to make a profit and you need to get that sale. And that stuff, it's already not working very well anymore. And it's like our frequency is really shifting to this emotional intelligence where we are designed to connect with the right frequencies. And so when it comes to marketing, and selling, like those things that if it's like it's just about getting money, it's about manipulating people. All of these things are no longer working. Now it's really more about collaboration, like expressing your unique, authentic self and connecting with others in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, one more thing I want to mention about that is, when it comes to marketing, and I think this is so important for people to understand, when you're marketing your business, you want to do it in a way that's really in alignment with who you are. Because some of these things, like If posting on Instagram 3 times a day is something that really excites you, that you love to do, and you really have something to share and you love Instagram, it's going to work for you. If you do not really like Instagram and some coach told you you have to post on Instagram at least this many times a day, every single day, and you're doing it because somebody told you to do it and it is not in alignment, it's not going to work. Like, no matter how many times you post, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So you really want to market and find what works for you and move with that and just let go of the rest. It doesn't matter what everybody else is saying you should do. It's actually what's correct for you. And this is where we go back to strategy and authority and letting your own inner authority guide what the correct marketing is for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love you talk about like frequency because I do feel like when you're approached or you see things online now, or yeah, in marketing or anything, right? Like it's so obvious now. It feels like when something's not aligned, like you can just feel when somebody's doing it for the money or for because that's what you're supposed to do. And it's interesting how many people, I mean, or whether or not they're consciously aware of it. I think you feel it now. In a
Yeah.
way that maybe we didn't before. And yeah, I love the whole collaboration piece because I think, yeah, that what is my purpose is always like a huge question that people have, and I think that we tied it so much to like, well, I get a job and I provide for my family and just these very like traditional structures of like how things look. And now it's like, there's so many, yeah, people are just like breaking away from that, and I was one of the ones. I was in, corporate America in 2020 and my company went under and I was like, well, what am I going to do now? And, obviously, not obviously, but human design and my podcast and things like that were things that were kind of percolating in the background. And then 2020, when it freed up all the space, I was like, oh my gosh. And I have never been so lit up by something, and so, obviously there's certain, I have another job and things like that. So I'm still trying to like break away and find my own flow in that. But yeah, it is a beautiful process and it's very different. I think, yeah, a lot of people, it's when you go out now and talk about, because for a long time I really hesitated in calling myself an astrologer because I was like, what are they going to think? It's so woo, it's so whatever. And now when people were like, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I have a podcast and I'm an astrologer. And people are like, oh, that's cool. Like it's so much more acceptable now than I think, even like 10 years ago. We're like, what? What do you do?
Yeah, I think, we've been moving towards this change of eras and people really are waking up more. And it's called the solar plexus mutation. And the solar plexus center in human design is both a motor, which means it is a center that like moves energy and drives you. And it's also an awareness center, which is how we take awareness in. And in this mutation, it is moving to becoming just an awareness center and no longer a motor. Of course, for all of those that were born before 2027, it's going to continue to be a motor, but our emotional awareness and it's also spiritual awareness, like that frequency is really coming online. And we've been seeing it for quite a few years now, where it is becoming more mainstream, like astrology, human design, all of these different tools that in the past people would be like, they're in the closet about. I mean, I was that way too. I wasn't running around being like, hey, I do human design. I just told it to the people that I'd be like, they might be open to it.
Yeah.
And now I just, tell everybody. But we like that awareness, that emotional and spiritual awareness is really waking up for everybody. And that's also why people can tell now when like something is forced or pressured or isn't aligned or is literally just out to get your money.
Mm.
And then when something is actually truly aligned for you and the frequency of the person is the correct frequency for you.
Mm-hmm. What does that look like for people, or children who are born 2027 and beyond, where the solar plexus is no longer a motor? Because for me, in my emotional experience, I think that was one of the things that was just like this huge aha moment where it's like, no, like, yes, we have to move this. And like, it's asking to be moved, right? In so many ways, like the emotional experience. So, yeah, kids that are born without that piece to it, it's
This is
interesting.
gonna, do you want to, it gets really esoteric. Like, do
Yeah,
you
I
want
love
to?
it. I love it.
Okay. Okay. So, not necessarily everybody that is going to be born post 2027 is going to be what Ra called a rave.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be like the parents have to have some very specific configurations in their design and also in their variables in order to be able to produce a rave. So not everybody is going to immediately be a rave. But what they say with the raves, when they're going to be they're going to be working in pentas, which are small groups of 3 to 5. And that's like, and I'm not an expert in this. I'm studying with somebody who's absolutely an expert in this. So forgive me if I mess it up. But it's really this like the way they work together, they're going to be able to communicate like telepathically or emotionally, like through their emotional awareness, like they'll be able to communicate with each other in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody really knows what it's actually going to look like. You can read a lot of different people's, including Ra's, like interpretations of what it's going to look like, and a lot of other people that have written about it, but we're not really going to know. And it
Yeah.
might take a while too. It's not, we're most of us that are alive and adults now. By the time, and it's going to take a while for the whole mutation to take into effect. Probably by the time that takes into effect, we might not be around anymore. So
Yeah.
as far as that is concerned, we don't know exactly what it's going to look like. But when it comes to like business and stuff like that, we've already seen the shift in what that looks like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like in 2027, there's going to be this like random boom of like people having babies, especially like people in this world that are like, because, I'll be 41 by that point, and even part of me is like, huh,
You're like,
have
should
another,
I or
should I
shouldn't
have a
I?
2027 baby? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
But, but, it's interesting. I mean, even the telepathy piece, like my son is 9, and I know, through conversations with teachers like over the years, there's this theme of like these kids are different, and not saying that they're rave kids, but I just think the kids coming in are like you said, it's this shift that's coming. It's not like a 2027 boom, everything's done, right? But it's like, the emotional intelligence and just like self-awareness. And my son, I tell everybody this, I'm like, I know that there's like a mother-son bond, but like my son, I reads my mind all the time. Like the psychic abilities of him, like it's wild. There's so many times that he'll say something I'm thinking, or like vice versa, or just like he knows. Or like one time I was walking to my car and he called me right then, and he was like, like just he knew. And it's like you can't explain that stuff, and it's so easy to just be like, oh, you're being ridiculous, or oh, like whatever. But I'm like, I always like, with him, I'll tell him that stuff. And I'm just like, just trust yourself, because it's just, I don't know. That's kind of like a tangent side note, but I think it's beautiful. And knowing that, we'll have more of that coming, whether or not it's, every child being born. And that's good to know too. Maybe people listen and like learn what the
Yeah.
things are they might not have in 2027, like Ray baby, but
Yeah.
but yeah, it's so fascinating. And yeah, I know, not to get like too like off tracks. I know I want to keep it like business, entrepreneurial focus, because I think that's fascinating too. But I know that there was a piece where, Rod did talk about like autism, and how that's, children who have the mutation but are just not ready for it yet. Am I understanding that correctly? Was the conversation around it, or?
I haven't not like dove very deep into that.
Okay.
I have also like heard about like the autism thing as well,
Mhm.
but I can't reliably answer that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I if you heard of the telepathy tapes,
No.
the podcast, there's a podcast called the Telepathy Tapes, and it's fascinating because she's talking about, children with nonverbal autism, and how they literally are telepathic. They are speaking to each other, they're going to this place on the hill in their mind, and they're communicating. And there's just like so many like really beautiful things, with that. And as I was listening to it, I kept thinking about, that kind of prophecy with Ra, where it's like, he's kind of alluded to this like over the, the years of this sort of happening, and the fact that it's kind of being proven a little bit with these children who can't speak, right? But they're really intelligent. And they, like, one of them was able to read glyphs from Egypt, that like she's never been to Egypt. She's just, been in her home. So it's just like really fascinating things like that can very, very esoteric and woo, but
Yeah,
it's
that
there.
is fascinating. And that is definitely very much like my understanding of what that would look like.
Mm-hmm.
I'll
Yeah.
have to check that out. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah, it is really good. It's kind of blown up. It's on season 2 now, but season 1 was really, really good.
Cool.
Um, so okay, so going back to like the business piece of it and like collaboration, which again I love, and I know we're kind of like seeing that more and more with people in like the entrepreneur space and working together. And I'm even part of a membership where we're figuring out, because it's such like people are opening up to it more, but it is also such a new concept at the same time. right? Like we're more receptive to it, but then it's sort of like when we communicate it or we talk about it, it's kind of like, because I think we're in this space where we're kind of having to like merge like the old world way of doing business with this new world way of doing business. And it's sort of this like dance we're trying to figure out, right? So, the piece of like being yourself and being authentic and, and all of that being like magnetic and the right people are going to find you. How do we like kind of lean into that like in this world where there is just this kind of old world way of doing things that is very conditioned into us, but yet we're wanting to move into this new, like we feel the resonance of it and we feel the pull of it, but we're just kind of like in between these two spaces.
That is such a good question. And yeah, I mean, it's so timely. That's the thing, like with human design, also with astrology, like one really getting to study yourself and understand yourself better and noticing like how the things you learn about yourself through these systems have actually shown up in your lived experience. And then experimenting around with strategy and authority and I mean, the thing with strategy and authority and these experiments, and like, this too, you're a 3 or 6-3,
Mm-hmm.
like, it's not easy. Like, it's really easy to say, oh, just follow your strategy and authority. But actually, like, doing it, it's not going to be rainbows and butterflies and easy and fun all the time. You're going to be asked to do scary things, things that stretch you. Your mind will try to talk you out of these things. But really, like, moving in that direction of like actually trusting your inner authority is a really big piece of that. And knowing what it feels like in your body, because again, like we are so conditioned to follow logic and follow our mind and make pros and cons lists about like what you're going to do and who you're going to collaborate with and if this makes sense or this doesn't make sense. Like we're so conditioned to do that. If you can start to recognize when you're doing that and then drop back into your body, do some body-based practices and whatever that might look like for you. This could be meditation, it could be breath work, it could be EFT tapping, movement dance, like taking walks in nature, whatever it is for you, where you get to regularly connect with your body and really learn to tap into your own inner authority and then give yourself permission to follow it. And that does require courage sometimes in seeing what happens. Because it's not necessarily going to be like this planned thing, like I'm going to collaborate with this person now and we're going to create this big thing. Like you might not even know what you're going to create. And there's like so many different aspects of design that like go into this. Like obviously it's going to be so unique to the individual. But really, if you go back to your strategy and authority, you really learn how to embody it and you start to follow what is presented to you. I think that's a big part of it. And it's not an overnight thing. It's not like you're gonna, go from working your corporate job that you've been working for 30 years to like tomorrow, jumping in to some big collaboration with somebody else. I mean, that does happen for some people. I'm not gonna say it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't happen, but it doesn't need to look like that. Like you can take it slowly. You can start to notice who you really connect with and see what comes out of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm not sure if that answered the question. I go off on tangents, but
No, I love it. And I think that, I know we hear so much about strategy and authority, especially when you're like new to it and you're coming in and everybody's saying it and you're like, oh my gosh, right. And it is so hard because I think so many of us have been conditioned out of what comes naturally to us, like of course by well-intentioned adults and things like that. But like um I think, yeah, you said like studying yourself. I believe that's such a huge part of this, like really getting to know yourself. And like, I think if people have like a journaling practice at night, just like reflecting back of like what felt good, what didn't, what was aligned. Like, I think like really noticing those things, even in like manifestation, right? Like, there's so many things, like small things I found like in my journey of manifestation that like I didn't take note of that I was like, oh, this isn't really, I guess you don't realize how much you're manifesting until you actually like write it down or have it visually in front of you. It's like, oh wow, like I actually did like all of these things. I think we gloss over something sometimes. And yeah, with the inner authority, like in strategy and authority, like I think, yeah, doing those in little ways because that builds the trust muscle. Because otherwise, if you're just like jumping in and like trusting what you don't trust because you don't know, right?
yeah.
It's hard to like reconcile that, I guess, right? Like it does take practice and And so many of us are just like so dysregulated, in so
Yeah.
many
And I mean, I
ways.
think that's another important thing is like nervous system regulation because you have to feel safe with yourself in order to follow your strategy and authority, especially when it's
Mm.
asking you to do kind of out of the box things.
Yeah.
So, nervous system regulation, and especially like if you're dealing with any kind of trauma, working with somebody who is an expert and specializes in that to help you work through that so that you can really, come into that place where you can be embodied and trust yourself. Like that's a big part of it for many, many people as well. And
Hmm.
understanding the difference between, I mean, like we talked about this in the beginning of the episode, like actually feeling your inner authority versus thinking it or doing it. Because for the longest time, I was doing mine, which is not
Mm.
actually following your authority. Like your authority lives in your body, it's not mental. And the mind is a beautiful, beautiful gift. It helps us conceptualize, it helps us plan, it helps us share our ideas and our wisdom with others. But it's not your own inner authority. And one of my mentors always says, I mean, Ross said this too, like your mind is not for you. Your mind is actually for other people.
Mm.
And your own inner authority lives in your body. So just recognizing like, is your mind, and your mind's trying to protect you.
Hmm.
It's trying to protect you with what it thinks it's best, even though your mind doesn't know what's best. Your body does. It's like really coming back into your body and noting, whatever your strategy and your authority might be, like, what does that actually feel like? Can you go back to a time where you didn't even think like, if you are a generator, manifesting generator, like what does a sacral yes feel like to you? Because it's going to be unique. It's going to be different than another generator or manifesting generator. If you're a projector, like what does it feel like to be truly recognized for your unique gifts? Not just because you're there and you can do the job, but really being recognized for like, what are your unique gifts? And manifestors, like, what do those creative urges feel like? And are you allowing yourself to honor creative cycles and then also rest cycles? Because I think that can get in the way for a lot of manifestors is not honoring those rest cycles. And then reflectors as well, like being in the right communities and kind of reflecting and feeling into the environment and just making those comparisons of times that like something did really feel aligned versus when something did not feel aligned and you did it anyway. Because I can tell countless stories of times when, but even before human design, when my intuition was like, don't do this, and my logic is
Hmm.
like, do this, and I did it, and it was like terrible.
Yeah.
And also the opposite, where I was like, this is completely illogical, and people think I'm nuts, but I'm following my strategy and authority, and it worked out amazingly.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. I was going to ask you what this would look like for each type and like showing up. Um, uh, yeah, it's so interesting. And I had a question, and I was like so into like the whole like all the types. Oh, well, I was going to ask how much of like so we talked about strategy and authority, and I don't know if you use this in coaching or anything like that, but like how much of are like the variables, specifically like the body variables, do you like pull into that, like being in the right place or like your environment, the
Yeah,
way that
they
you're
are
eating?
very significant. And I like not even going down to the level of like, your specific environment or your specific, determination, but really even just looking at the arrows, the direction that the arrows are
Mm-hmm.
focusing or facing. And I do want to preface this with variables change very quickly. So having a very accurate birth time is really important.
Mm-hmm.
But with variables, three of my variables face right and only one faces left. So my focus, I can focus in a very strategic and very detailed way. But the rest of my life is very like peripheral and receptive and forcing strategies for somebody with a lot of right facing arrows. Like it's having a, set schedule and doing this and this every day, like doesn't work for those of us that are very right facing. That can work for people that are very left facing, like having a content calendar and having your schedule perfectly set and knowing exactly what you're going to do at what time every day. That might work, if you're more left facing, but for those of us that are more right facing, like that doesn't necessarily work. So, I mean, it is very unique also depending on which arrows are facing right and left, and there are 16 different combinations. So I do bring that in. I do think it's very important. Um, it really can tell you a lot about how to show up in life. And I will say with the variables, like when I really started to kind of relax into my variables, and you can't do them either, especially the unconscious ones. Like if you're following your strategy and authority over time, naturally these things will fall into place. So you can't be like, well, I'm receptive and I should be in a caves environment. So I'm going to make a cave and I'm going to sit there and just wait for stuff to come to me. Like, no, that's not how it works. But if you're also aware that it's like another deeper layer of like, what does it feel like when you're really in the right flow, if you are more right facing versus more left facing. And it gives you like this extra layer that helps you then tune into your strategy and your authority as well. And I found that like as I've become more aligned with my variables and I start to notice what like resonance really feels like, and we can go into the deeper layers like your trajectory being activated and your orientation being correct, which again is not something you can do. It just happens naturally when you're in alignment. But when I can notice, I'm like, oh, this is what that feels like. Okay, like we're on the right track. Or like, no, this is not what that feels like. So not really on the right track. It's very helpful. But I do caution people, like I know it's like super fascinating stuff, and people like sometimes when they're brand new to human design, they're like, I want to know what this means and this means and this means. And I know because I was that person too with my 5-1, my first line, and I have a lot of first colors in my variables too. But I recommend waiting a little bit and really understanding what your strategy and authority feels like, and understanding more about your body graph before you dive into variables.
Mhm.
And then when you do dive into them, like when the time is right, that stuff will click. Because I've tried to dive into them like prematurely and it was just like all this theoretical stuff in my head.
Yeah.
But when the time actually was right, that's when I was like, oh, okay, I see. Like I can sense how this is actually showing up in my life and how it is giving me feedback as to, you know, how much in alignment I am, and also like those little cues when I'm out of alignment.
Hmm. I love that. I also, same thing. When I first learned human design, I went in hard, like I was like everything. I wanted to consume everything that was like the logical part of my mind, just like wanting something to do. But I do say that it's interesting with human design. It's like you can intellectualize the stuff, but when you're ready to actually feel it and like be it kind of, it makes so much sense in such a different way, like in that lived experience way. So I love that. That's very much the experience that I've also found with human design, because yeah, it's so easy to get so heady about it.
Yeah. And I mean, there is something I think to be said too, like in order to really deeply understand something, like and embody it, you do need an intellectual
Mm-hmm.
understanding of it first. And it goes so much deeper than that. Like you can have the intellectual understanding for a while before you actually start to embody it.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously I do think like the studying part and the creating awareness about your own design is really important. And then allowing it to just like seep in and sink in and knowing, like feeling that resonance.
Yeah. 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 And going back to that authenticity, some of us are just obsessed with the information, right? Like,
Yeah.
so we just want to consume it. And,
Yeah.
but yeah, it just hits different, I think, when you're ready to like actually embody it, and not just like have it swimming around in your head. Because I mean, that's such an easy thing to do. And it's interesting because I also have 3 right arrows. I have 1 left arrow, but so many people
Which
that,
one is left for you?
my bottom right, I can't remember what is,
Oh, okay, that's your perspective. So same as
yeah,
me. So we
yeah,
have the same. I
yeah,
love it. We have the
yeah,
same variable.
yeah. Yeah. And I find like for me, yeah, it's like structure is so hard, but like when I'm focused. Like I am
Yeah.
in it. So like my consumption of information when I am like so like locked into that. And it's funny, I have a lot of people that come into my world that are like quad left and like super logic based. And I'm just like, I get it, but I also am so fluid in so many other different ways. It's a really interesting combination there. Part of me is just like, "Ah, I wish I was
Yeah.
just all quad right," but I think I would
I
like
have it. Well,
struggle.
I actually think like having a little bit of both. I
Mm,
have, interestingly enough, I have quite a few quad lefts in my life too, and a few
mm,
quad rights, but I think having a little bit of both because this, going back to the solar plexus mutation and
mm.
this era shift, like we're moving from this very logical all left to this more like holistic, fluid all right. And when we have a little bit of both, we kind of have an understanding of both of those things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like that bridge, like the question earlier,
Yeah.
right? Where it's like, how do we like combine this like old left, brain and then the right that's
Yeah.
coming
And
up,
that,
right?
yeah. And then going back also to the raves, because it's like they're going to all be more right. So they don't have
Mm,
any of that like strategic, which is part of like the way they do their strategy is in small groups as well.
mm,
It's like they get the
yeah,
strategy through the penta or
yeah.
a small unified group.
Yeah. Well, I think just understanding, human design and astrology and like having this information is so helpful. And Ra always talks about like this is for the kids. So like being able to have this as a tool for, parents, but also just for people in relationship to like I dated a reflector for over a year, and human design like kind of it helped me so much because like I like we didn't work out. Just like I'm so quick. I'm so fast. Like there was a lot to it, but it was really challenging for like his like I can honor his slowness and what he needed, but also like I just need a different speed. But it
Did you
really
already
helped.
know human design when you were dating him?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, he was a 3-6 reflector. And so I was
Oh,
just like,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, it
Oh,
was
so
just
so much resonance in your profiles,
there was, and we did get
but
along
not
really,
necessarily
really
in the
well.
type.
But yeah, it was that was really challenging. The energetics of it, like as far as that was tough. We created a 9 and 0 too, so it was like when we were together, there was like nothing else. I've noticed like a few partners where that it's like I literally don't even see anything else when we're like out.
Yeah.
There's no one but us. It's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but yeah, it's just really helpful. And even like with my kids, and I think sometimes it's challenging because it's like you have this awareness, you see this, like my son is sacral, my daughter's emotional. And so my son, if there's any hesitation, I know it's a no. But then there's a
Oh
part of
yeah.
me that's just like, let's just do it. Like, what do but then I have to like honor, like, no, he doesn't want to do this thing. And if I want him to honor himself, I have to sit here and honor it. And it's so
Yeah.
confronting, right? Because like as children, most of us weren't given that. It's just like you do what that's why we're so conditioned out of just like being ourselves. But I don't
Yeah.
know. It's beautiful and it's helpful, and also it can be really frustrating because we're just like trying to pave a new way, but then we have all these little hooks from like our past, and it's like this push pull.
Yeah. It is really amazing though to be able to look at like your charts and the charts of your kids and your loved ones, your partners, and see, where some of the little challenges lie. And I don't know, I just find it so empowering. Like it's helped me so much in my relationships for sure. And like really understanding other people and not taking things personally that I might have taken
Yeah.
personally in the past. Um, it is, yeah, it's such a cool gift.
Yeah. And even emotionally, there was something you said earlier when you were talking about strategy and authority that I kind of wanted to like touch on and bring into the conversation, and but just like you mentioned trauma, right? And I think like you said that a lot of people do deal with whether it's big T or little T trauma, like that's it creates an abandonment of the self of your body, right? And I think that I have trauma that shows up very strongly in my body that doesn't always make sense, and that has been a challenge in trusting my authority, my strategy and authority, because I'm like, what is actually my truth? What is my trauma? And I've understood that the chaos, the familiar feeling, is not my authority, right? And like having to sit with that, but it's been a huge practice. And there are still some days like, oh my gosh, this last Mercury retrograde in Scorpio just like was so hard. Like all of that stuff came up, but it was just like having to go through it again, and it kind of like helped me move through my progress and healing, and just it showed me how much I've healed, but also showed me where I still need to heal. It's so challenging. But I guess like my question is, as all of this stuff shifts and as we're like coming more into our body, like, is there any advice or like something that we can do? I guess with or without trauma, but specifically speaking to like somatic work, right? Like within our system to like move through this. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think it does come back to strategy and authority to finding what the right somatic work is for you. Because
Mm,
truthfully, I mean, we all need somatic work. Like we all have, like you said, there's a big T's and then there's also the little T's. Like we all have some of that to work through. So really noticing like what is the correct somatic work for you. And if you're working with a teacher, like who's the right teacher for you? Like noticing who you attract, who attracts you, and then doing that work. And that might also shift for you. Like I have gone through so many different, and I have the strengths of cycles or the channel of cycles in my design too, where it's like I go through phases where I'm very into one particular somatic practice. I really focus on it. I studied it very in-depthly. My first lens, like, I need to get certified. And then I spend a lot of money and then I move on. No, but it's like finding what works for you. And it might change. You might stick with something for a little while and then something else like is really pulls you in and then you work with that for a little while, but just finding what works for you. And the simplest thing I think is just to start with the breath
Mm.
and just breathing and feeling your breath in your body, slowing down your exhales, especially if you're feeling like triggered or your nervous system is really activated. And then when you get to a place where you can really allow yourself to actually feel your feelings, because that part is huge.
Mm.
And not like it, not everybody will be ready for it. It's something that took me a while to get to. But now when your feelings come through, especially the ones that we label as bad that we don't want, like fear, anger, sadness, disappointment, all of these feelings that we're like, oh, I don't want to feel this. But if you can literally just go into your body, you can close your eyes and feel somatically like what that feels like without attaching a story to it. So that's a really hard part
Mm.
because we feel these feelings that we don't like, and then we start telling ourselves like some story about it, or why the other person was wrong, or why you're justified, or why you shouldn't feel this way, or maybe it distracts you and you get up and go to the fridge or have a drink or whatever it is. Like if you can catch yourself doing that and come back into your body and feel the physical sensation, because really all it is an unpleasant physical sensation,
Mm.
which if you're alive and listening to this right now, you have literally survived all of the unpleasant physical sensations you've ever had. So if you
Mm.
can just sit with it and allow it, it'll shift. Like it'll move around. Maybe it moves to another part of your body, and you just keep following it around until it just dissipates on its own.
Mm.
And that is like really, you're metabolizing emotion. I have an amazing mentor, Adrienne Walker Hall. She has a system called 5D crystalline emotion. And so she talks about this in like such a beautiful way of like metabolizing emotions and really allowing emotions to move through you. And then it's almost like they open new doorways to new information that comes through.
Mm.
So if you're in a place where you feel safe enough in your body to allow yourself to really feel those feelings, try that one out. And if you're not, then go to the other tools that help you. Maybe it's EFT or breath work or whatever it is to just, my mentor calls this pulling the parachute of relief, like if it gets too intense, and like really stretching your ability to feel those emotions and allowing them to really move through you. And the more you do that, the more you'll allow yourself to do it, if that makes any sense. That's something that's really helped me with my emotional wave, and also being a manifesting generator with 4 defined motors and like even my not self-theme, even frustration, any of those things, literally just allowing myself to feel it and just pausing, stopping everything and just taking time to feel. And it doesn't take long. It's not like you're going to
Mm.
be there for like an hour. It takes a
Yeah.
few minutes.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, like the things that can come through and that you open up to when you really metabolize your own emotions.
Hmm. Yeah, I think in the resistance at what keeps it like, present and like stretched out and like such this long process that it's like if you can actually come inside and sit with it. And I love that what you shared, like following it, and like in the body. That's really beautiful. I try and like come inside and anytime, well, especially when the mind gets loud, I'm just like this, I visualize my inner child, and it just gives me it kind of softens it a little bit where I'm like, she's just having a fit. She wants to be seen. She wants to be heard. Like, because I feel like that's what we all want. We want to be seen. We
Yeah.
want to be recognized. We want to be heard. There's so many children, right? Like we just weren't heard. We weren't acknowledged. You're just a
Yeah.
kid. Like, what do you know? Like go to your room, or like it was just always like, I mean, we started offline, talking about like family a little bit, right? But like with that solar plexus, like understanding, kind of tying back into like understanding people's charts, like my entire family was undefined emotionally, and I was the only defined one. So it was like anytime I had an emotional expression, it was like, go to your room. Right. So it was like I took on this message that I was just wrong for having emotions. Right. And through like my romantic relationships and friendships, has been this like theme of like when I'm emotional, people leave. That's kind of been like an underlying subconscious belief. And I've done a lot of work to like break that, where it's like, no, actually, the emotional part of me is the most beautiful part of myself. Right. And like I've had to do the work to love it myself, because I didn't for a long time, right? So I think like, yeah, I think a lot of people just don't spend the time to come in and have a relationship with the emotional world because it is really painful, especially when you have trauma attached to it. I mean, it brings up memories and stories, and a lot of times, yeah, we just don't even understand what it is. We don't know. We just feel bad, and that's the story, right? So I love that kind of like exploring it and coming inside and having some practice that works to bring you into it. Because yeah, if you can't connect with your body, you can't connect with your strategy and authority, and that's
Yeah.
kind of what we need to come into.
I also want to talk to the undefined emotional solar plexus for a minute since we both have it
Mm-hmm.
defined.
Yeah.
The importance of recognizing, because if your solar plexus is undefined, you're going to have your own feelings like, good things are going to happen that you'll be happy about, and bad things will happen, you'll be sad. But in addition to that, you're picking up the emotional waves of everybody around you. And I always like to describe this as like being emotionally defined. I can tell what somebody's feeling by observing them and looking at them. They're stomping around and they must be mad, or they're crying, they must be sad. But it's not like I'm having the physical experience. Where somebody that's emotionally defined, like you're physically having the experience of the emotional waves that are around you. So learning to really determine like what is actually yours and what are you experiencing in your body that is not yours from people around you. Because you do not have to metabolize other people's emotions. Like you're not responsible for them. Other people's emotions are information for you. Being undefined means your solar plexus is a great source of wisdom and you get to experience it in so many different ways, where those of us that have it defined experience it in a very consistent and specific way. So really tuning in, like when you are picking up emotions, like, is this actually mine or am I picking this up from around me? Not identifying with emotions that are not your own. You do not need to metabolize other people's emotions. You can just let them flow through. And if you need to break or space, if you're in a very emotionally like in a situation where you're really picking up somebody else's stuff, going off into your own space, just taking some time to release anything that you might have taken up in your centers is really important. But yeah, really learning like the difference between what's yours and what is theirs. And, coming back to the trauma work, like you may have stored emotions in your solar plexus that you've been picking up from other people for God knows how long.
Mm-hmm.
So really learning to like release that stuff and work through that as well is yeah, really valuable work.
Yeah. You said the physical experience is different for the emotional and undefined?
Well, I
Or
mean, this is okay, so not being undefined, I don't actually have
yeah.
any embodied experience
Yeah.
of what this is like, but my understanding is that people that are emotionally undefined can physically experience in their own bodies the emotions of other people
Mm-hmm.
in an amplified way even.
Mm-hmm.
So, like if I'm feeling sad and I'm sitting next to somebody who's undefined, they might feel doubly as sad and they might think that it's their sadness, but they're actually picking it up from me.
Mm-hmm.
Where I might be sitting next to somebody who's, it doesn't matter what their definition is, and they're sad, and I can see that they're sad, and I might really love them, and it makes me sad to see them sad because I really love them, but that's my sadness. I'm sad because they're sad because I love them, but I'm not physically feeling their sadness in my body, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. And I'd love
Yeah.
to hear your experience being that you are defined
Mm-hmm.
emotionally and like how that shows up for you.
Yeah, I find that, sometimes in the past specifically too, I say it's almost like I'm selfish in my emotional experience because I can't feel what other people are feeling, right? Like I do think I'm an empath and I have feeling cognition. So there is a sense of like when I first learned about the undefined solar plexus with the people pleasing and the lying and things like that, I was like, am I undefined emotionally? But like I'm so in my own emotional experience that like I think my trauma helps me pick up little nuances and changes of behavior. And I confuse that with actually feeling what they're feeling. But I think it's coming from me, right? It's just I'm paying attention more so than anything else. And that changes my emotional experience. But it's interesting because my son is undefined emotionally, but he has almost every gate activated. I think he doesn't have like two. So when my daughter and I get around him, he's also a Scorpio rising. This is why I love the fusion of human design and astrology. So when he gets
Yeah.
emotional, first of all, it's a good mirror for me because I'm like, where am I dysregulated? Where's my daughter dysregulated? But his emotion switches to anger real quick. It's always anger is what comes out, right? That like Scorpio part of him, where it's just like he rages. But it's been a practice to tell him, not everything what he feels is his. He might be experiencing something from me. And if he needs to remove himself, and he was a 2-4. So he's super, super social. He's super loving, but sometimes he'll just like turn off and go to his room. And I'm like, are you okay? He's like, yeah, I just wanted to be alone. Right. So I'm like, okay, I have to honor that. Right. But
Yeah.
yeah, it is an experience. And I think that like, yeah, like you said, I don't feel other people's emotions. I see them, but I'm so in my own experience, especially when I'm activated, right? And I'm just like, I have to like check myself because I'm like, check in with other people. How are they feeling? Because it's not all about me. That can be hard sometimes.
I love that you brought the variable into this as well, because I used to think like I was like, I'm an empath. And then I was like, wait, I'm emotionally defined. And I'm like, oh, this makes sense because my emotional wave is like textbook.
Mm,
I also have a lot of right-facing arrows. And, like that substructure, like beneath the surface, like I like to think of it like when we look at the variables and the arrows, it's kind of like the infrastructure of a city, all of the little things that go together, the roads and the wires and the water pipes and all that kind of stuff that's kind of like beneath the surface. And then when you look at your body graph, it's like this is, when you're actually in the city and you're driving around and like what you see on the surface. So there's so many different layers and nuances to design, and it's so fascinating. And you said your perspective variable is left, so you can focus like really, really deeply, but you also have these three right-facing arrows that are very receptive, very peripheral, very open to the space around you. And, so it's not all like one or the other. Like you may
mm,
be emotionally defined and you may have an emotional wave and you are broadcasting that wave out around you and people are picking it up. But then you also have these deeper, like this mental, like cognitive architecture that's also operating below the surface that does pick up things in different ways. So, I mean, it's really like when you put the two together, sometimes
mm-hmm.
it gets confusing. Sometimes I'm still like, okay, wait, I don't understand this yet. I need to hear it in 57 different ways. But yeah, I mean, it does, and of course, the astrology, my
Yeah.
mom was an emotionally undefined manifester who was a Cancer sun with Scorpio moon and Scorpio rising. So
Wow.
you could end with the
Yeah.
daughter that had a 3740 wave. So you can only imagine what that was like.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I love like bridging the two. There's people who have like open solar plexus with a Capricorn moon, or like one of my best friends is defined solar plexus with a Capricorn. It's just so interesting to see, that dynamic of like, Capricorn moon is traditionally not very emotional, right? Like they compartmentalize things, but then with
Same
an
with my
emotional
Aquarius.
wave.
Yeah. My
Yeah. And
Aquarius
even
moon. And I'm a
Aquarius.
Capricorn rising.
Yeah. Are you really?
Yeah.
But I think like right, like having that wave, it's like you might not be overly emotional, like maybe a Leo moon or a Scorpio moon or something like that, but you understand the mechanics and energetics of an emotion, right? Versus
Yeah.
somebody I was with who was completely open emotionally and a Capricorn moon was so detached from emotions. It was so hard to get through because like they just couldn't understand what I was experiencing. It was just so foreign to them, right? So it's so interesting to see like all those little dynamics. And like you said, there's so many nuances, and we could go on forever about it because there's just
Oh
like so
yeah, for
much to
sure.
talk
For
about.
sure. For
Yeah,
sure.
it's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been so much fun. I've loved this conversation. Is there anything that you felt like maybe we didn't bring to the conversation that you wanted to like close with?
I mean, I think we did bring this to the conversation, but just to reiterate, like really connecting with your own inner authority and knowing what is true for you and then following that, I think is the most important thing. And I know that's not an overnight. I know that's not a like, follow your strategy and authority. And you're like, okay, cool, done.
Mhm.
It's obviously not like that. But I think it all comes back to that, like knowing what your inner truth is and then giving yourself permission to really honor it.
Mm, I love that. Well, thank you so much. And how can people work with you? How can they find you? And is there anything in like 2026 that you can share that you're working on?
You can find me at vanessanaja.com. I also do a lot of work with Bodygraph. You can find Bodygraph at bodygraph.com. We have monthly workshops that we do through Bodygraph. They are free for everybody. So all that stuff is going on. There's lots of things coming up in 2026, but they're not fully baked yet, so I can't share them.
Yeah. Just go follow and
Yeah,
everyone will find
yeah,
out.
yeah. And you can also, find us on Instagram, YouTube,
Mhm.
both me and Bodygraph.
Yeah.
All of those fun places. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is a wonderful
Of
conversation, and I
course.
really appreciate you having me on.